always, Mum and Dad, Dad mainly, in Parliament during those years, which meant that our lives were generally disrupted. Denise and Anne, the older two, and we lost last November. Denise turns 80, but we can't figure age now. Turns 80 in next month and is here today, all the way from Booker Bay. I have some good memories with Greg growing up, though, and strong ones. I remember, and the girls may well remember this too, that Greg as a youngster, we used to pay the Housing Commission rent. Before Mum and Dad were able to buy the house, they used to pay rent each fortnight. And the rent collection office was down in Pepper Street, near, it was a laneway. And I remember vividly Greg taking the rent money out. He trusted people with the rent money those days. He never thought about entrusting a 6-year-old child with a £50 note. Never a problem. But Greg came back having trod on a beer bottle down there with blood pouring out of his foot. And I think we had to take him to hospital. And this Lord, we went to Dr. Weinberg, probably Dr. Weinberg, who used to prescribe everything. Provided you wore a woolly hat, then you were obviously going to get. Days in Panania, or in the monastery of Panania, were great. With a family growing up. Denise and Anne, being older, left home whilst I was still at home, and it was just Greg and I for a time anyway, for 7 years after Greg came the twins. Michael and Stephen, who are both here today also. And that was a shock to Mum. I think it was more a shock to Mum than Dad. Dad just didn't have that concern, but Mum didn't know that the twins were going to be twins until after the first was born. And then we had, and that was another change in the family, because then the attention, the focus, was obviously from Mum and Dad's perspective on the twins. Dad was in Parliament, or going to Parliament shortly afterwards, and it was hard. And Greg and I had different circles of friends because of the 3-year age difference, and he got my granddaughter. And we didn't have a really close growing up period because of that. I think that 1 year age difference makes a big difference. Anyway, I do remember though vividly a trip we went on with my mum and with my dad down to Braidwood, down in southern New South Wales, down near Goulburn. And I remember it mainly because Greg nearly shot me in the foot. He was carrying the 22, we were going rabbit shooting. I went under the, I went through the barbed wire. Greg followed me with a gun, which obviously you never second guess, you don't need second guesses for that. And the gun went off, and it led bloody. No problem at all, no problem at all. When we went to school together, those years at Darlinghurst, Greg was in the cadets, I was in the cadets. Greg was in my platoon when I was a cadet under officer. So he was the first year, I was the last year of cadets. We went on school camps, cadet camps together, and I again remember vividly an incident at Singleton Army Camp where Greg was in number 2 platoon and I was CUO, cadet under officer, and number 1 platoon. We set up an ambush in the dark in Singleton, all these little year 9 kids, year 8 kids, marching through in the dark on patrol, and we opened fire on them with blank 303s. Brown stains are still pretty there in the dark. Later on, when Darlinghurst finished, Greg went on to Benilde High School while I went on to university. And when Greg finished high school at Benilde, he joined the Customs Department. My dad, who was quite influential in those days, got him into Customs because Customs was a Catholic department. The Protestants had the other departments, and the Catholics had Customs, and one other one which I can't recall. So that was everything, and by that I mean the people who ran the department were Catholics, and so they encouraged Catholics to be brought into the street. We're talking 50s and 60s here now, so different era, but I remember Greg going into customs, and he had, as was mentioned at the chapel, an encyclopedic knowledge of the Customs Act and regulations. That was bored me shitless to was mentioned. But, and I was a lawyer at the time, and I couldn't care less about the Customs Act than Greg. Greg knew every part of it and was able to explain to me, as a lawyer, why I was wrong on this particular point. But he didn't like that at all. He was with Customs for several years. I can't recall exactly how many. He then moved on from Linda tells me on to Swift and Moore for a number of years. That's a beverage importing exporting company. Again, in the role of a customs and excise guru. And from there, he was poached by Woolworths, where he remained for 37 years. As Linda said, and as Chris said on behalf of Linda today, till the day he died. He wasn't somebody who had ambition to climb the ladder of success within the department. He wasn't. He was happy with his lot. He had happiness. He found happiness in his love life. I'd say that his love of his life more accurately. Linda and Greg met, I'm told, and Greg was in hospital at Bankstown Hospital, and Linda was in a trainee nurse at the time. She told me she wasn't 21, so she was obviously being cradle snatched. She tells me also that Greg pursued her. Sorry. Yeah, stalking. Days before mobile phones, no FaceTime, Linda believed quite accurately and honestly that to mingle with your patients is not a good idea, not career-wise or generally. So she ignored him until one day she received a letter from him. He chose it that extent, sent a letter, folks, to these young people. That's one of those things that comes in the post box. It's sometimes typed, mainly handwritten, back in the day. She finally, as I said, succumbed to his charms. And they were living, she was living in the nursing, if I remember rightly, sorry, living in the nurse's quarters at Bankstown maybe, and they eventually started dating, engaged, got married, and had 2 beautiful kids. Prior to that, of course, as you heard today, Greg's 2 other beautiful kids were on this planet, and both of them are here today with their extended families. And it was lovely to see Becky here today with her brood, who were actually querying Beck a moment ago what size of vehicle you are driving down here today, because it's a minibus or otherwise. But here comes trouble. This is Charlotte, by the way.
Hi, Charlotte.
I digress. Without going too much into his life story, I wanted to touch on a couple of points that were significant as I saw them. One, that they've lived at 3 Lisgar Street, Falcon Hills, for 38 years. In that time, I think we had 5 or 6 others maybe. But they were complete there with their 2 boys, and Greg close to home, close to work. Everything was going really, really well. Over the years, the boys, of course, with school, and I noticed there's some of his schoolmates, some of David's and Chris's schoolmates here today, which is wonderful to see. They had a happy life. Things were uncomplicated. Greg, as was also mentioned, was a tinkerer. I vividly remember him, he had a dog. I can't remember the dog's name. The dog had George. George had 1 leg.
No legs.
No leg.
He went to fire at BMW, became paraplegic.
Okay. So they got a cook dog at home. What does Greg do? He builds a cart for the dog. So wheels on the front, at the back rather, paws at the front, and George was able to get around for many years after that. Unlike me, Greg knew what he was doing. If he was given a hand tool, a hammer and a screwdriver, he'd know what to do with me. No, I have sons-in-law for that purpose, and they're perfectly good utilitarian. I wanted to keep this short, but I find it difficult to do that as a brother, because so much needs to be remembered of Greg. Stuff that I had passed my memory, and now I remember it, and it comes back to me as clear as crystal. Daniel mentioned a moment ago that, as I was talking with him, that today has engendered memories for him that he thought were hidden, but he was very little bit when he and Becky left with their mum. But the fact that they're both here today shows not just a respect for their father, the father that they didn't know all that well growing up. And Greg made that hard call, and it was something I don't think I could do as a parent, but because the separation was very, when they were very young, Daniel was only 2, Greg made the hard call that he thought it was better for the 2 children for him not to be a part of their lives as they grew up, but they should be with their stepfather Peter and be raised with them. And that led to an estrangement in a physical sense, and today things come back here to his funeral, and that reconciliation, I think, has been a wonderful outcome of Greg's passing. There's probably a lot more I want to say about my brother. We lost our sister Anne last November. I've now lost a sister and a brother. And that's hard. I'm lucky that I have a very supportive family, my wife, and my 3 daughters are here today. As you saw, my little granddaughter. I want to just address my final words to Linda, because I know how devoted you 2 were to each other. Linda mentioned you saw the flowers, the red roses over here that were on Greg's coffin. Linda tells me that Greg bought her roses every anniversary. It just put my weights up, I can say that. I think that's how they cost me some money. Because I don't do that. But Greg always did. And for that length of time, it showed the respect that he had for you and the love that he had for you. Separate to you and your kids, just you. Just you. And it's going to be hard for you then to deal with his absence. But as you said, there will be a part of him attached close to you. If things go right, then you'll have part of his ashes with you all the time, and that will be a wonderful memory. It's a compliment to you and your boys, and again, there's some coppers over here sitting at the table with they're not in uniform, obviously. You may have got to pick that out, it's the haircuts, give it away. And on that point, by the way, David's organised for a 1-hour moratorium on police pursuits from this venue. And we're already
I think Daniel needs that.
I wanted, as I said at the start, the bell, the Darlow bell. Greg nicked it when the school closed in '68, which is again a Martin tradition, a Martin thing that if it's not tied down, you knock it off.
Go hard.
Yeah, absolutely. At my request, Greg donated that school bell, which he held for many, many, many years. He donated that to the Morris Brothers Darling Girls Old Boys Union, and he made a plaque confirming its authenticity. Me, not going to too many of those meetings, took it along one meeting and everyone was filled to bits, and we promised to give it to the do it, we forgot. And it sat on top of my cupboard for ages. And I'm giving it back today. Linda, that's for you. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
G'day, Ross. I'm sure you've heard enough of me from today, but I don't show up at this afternoon. Can we hear me? Yeah. Look, I've known my father my whole life. He's always been there for me. He's the type of person who, no matter what it was, astrophysics, German, some sort of niche pop in from somewhere that no one has ever heard of. Didn't know the answer. Didn't know how to fix it. Didn't know how to do it. Didn't know how to do it. That's a big loss that we're all going to face, at least in our household. Whenever anything was really out of our grasp, he know how to get there. And he's the type of person who can piece it together and make it work. I've learned a lot from him. I know my strength, my stoicness, my kindness, that's all come from him. So I guess some stories. He always used to delight in the stories. He spent his whole time trying to laugh. He always had a chuckle. He always had some sort of a smart ass comment to make, and that was his strength. Like things he used to love talking about, say for example me, I went skydiving a couple of years back, and basically I told him the second I hit the ground I'll send you a message, I'll let you know how it's going. And so I didn't message him for about 4 odd hours, and then I sent him a message going, oh, my girlfriend's, my wife's parachute didn't open, it was awesome. And you know, I then put the phone down, didn't speak for 5 hours. So here's my dad in a different country thinking that my partner's died in a plane accident and I'm running around in hysterics over there. But, you know, he used to bring that story up all the time. I think what it is, you know, he loved all of us. The main thing he loved Linda. And he spent every moment I've ever seen him devoting himself to working to pay for his family, to make his house, to work on the yard. He'd run himself physically into the ground to get those tasks done. And he continued to do so until now. So